Welcome inside the RX Muscle Studios in New York for another episode of Askdave, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Visit speciesnutrition.com. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. Glad you can join us on this Wednesday afternoon 30-minute question and answer with Dave Palumbo, founder and president of Species Nutrition. And with that, we bring in Dave. Dave, a lot going on, of course, with the build-up to the Olympia, and it all starts tomorrow as we bring in Max Charles on our brand new show, Live With.
Yeah, it's exciting. Max Charles got the first pro win of his career, and it's always the first one is the one you remember most. Obviously Max has been a pro for 2 years now, and he's never got the win. He's been close. He's been top three a lot of times. A lot of people will criticize his legs over the years and say, oh, he'll never bring them up to his upper body. He started working with Chris Aceto for this past show, and it was the best we've ever seen of him. So great to see the win. He lives in our backyard here, so we're going to get him into the studio. It's going to be great because I want to ask him a lot of good questions. I know a lot of people know that Max's, training methods and his eating methods are a little unconventional, so it's going to be exciting to talk to him about that.
And just so you know, going for the next 4 to 5 weeks leading into the Olympia, we have a lot of content planned for you. We have a lot of athlete interviews planned for you. So we're going to be going through that competitor list and bringing you some of the top Olympians that, of course, we have access to. So keep it locked into rxmuscle.com. And, of course, make sure to follow us on the Muscle Central forum on rxmuscle.com. With that, 30-minute question and answer with Dave Palumbo. You can ask your questions on the Muscle Central forum on rxmuscle.com. If you're not already a member, it is free to register. You can ask your questions on Twitter using hashtag AskDave, on our official Instagram page, official_RxMuscle, or on our official Facebook page. The best overall question will win a Species gym bag as well as Nitrolize pre-workout. And if you get the best I hate this show or I would rather be doing X, you get Nitrolize by Species Nutrition. We start off in the Muscle Central forum with our friend PTB. Hello, Dave. What is your view on using a barbell pad or Monterey for either high bar or lower bar squatting? I've added more squatting to my leg training, but the bar is still uncomfortable across my back no matter where the bar is placed, even if I use towel. The pad or Monterey makes it more comfortable, but I know some who frown upon using them. What's your take, or how can I make squatting more comfortable?
We used to, back in the day when we used to squat, the guys who would have to put the pad, they said they have a little pad that goes, like, wraps around the bar and it cushions your back. We used to make fun of those guys, for doing that because, it would mean you don't have big enough traps. And but I understand some people find it uncomfortable. Usually the people that find it uncomfortable to put the bar in their back are not putting it in the right place. They either put it too low or too high. So assuming that that's not the case and you just happen to have an uncomfortableness, there's nothing wrong with putting the pad on there. I guess, it kind of misbalances the bar a little bit, but it's not going to take away from your leg training. So if you got to use the pad on the bar, put the pad on the bar. As long as you're doing the squats, that's what's the most important.
Let's go to our friend BB50+. Dave and Sid, this show is horrible. Let's get to it. Are there any of the routine blood tests done during typical lab work, HDL, LDL, various minerals and vitamins, creatine, etc., that our bodybuilders should be above or below the nominal values? Also, are there any specific tests that one should order during routine blood work? I typically get fasting blood work done twice a year and was wondering if there are any tests I should specifically ask for. I am lifetime natural, if that makes any difference.
Personally, when I tell people to go for blood work, you want to get the standards right off the bat. The CBC, which is your complete blood count, that goes white blood cells, red blood cells, hematocrit, that tells you anything about your blood. Then you have the SMA-20, which I think they call the metabolic panel now. They've changed the name of it. And that's your kidney function, creatinine, BUN, your liver function, which is your liver enzymes. That's pretty standard on the SMA-20. And then of course you have your cholesterol panel you can do, where you can do your LDL, HDL cholesterol. I would get that done as well. Then you start getting into your hormonal panels like thyroid, THT, or thyroid function test, TFT. That would test your T3, T4, TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, reverse T3, which is your inactive, T3. And then you want to test testosterone, estrogen, DHT, prolactin, cortisol. So if you get all that done, that's pretty good. On top of that, I like to get vitamin D3 levels checked as well. And it doesn't hurt to test your vitamin B12 levels. These are vitamins that are can screw you up, so to speak, if you don't have optimal levels of it. Sid, you sound like you have the plague over there. You better not be infecting us with TB or anything like that. But anyway, getting back.
More pleasant thoughts on
We got to
the show.
send you for blood work. Your white blood cells will probably come back very high. That's usually standard what I tell people to get done on a regular basis. As far as anomalies go, bodybuilders always have high enzyme levels, especially if you don't take a couple days off from the gym before you get the blood work done. Because when you break down muscle tissue, these metabolic enzymes that are found not only in liver cells, but in muscle cells, heart cells, when you break down muscle tissue in the gym, you leak these enzymes into the bloodstream. When you go for blood work, you measure these things, they come up high. The doctor automatically assumes, if they don't know anything about working out, that you have high liver function. In other words, your liver is breaking down, the cells are degenerating for some reason. That's not the case. Typical bodybuilders, endurance runners, people who exercise at a very high level will have high enzyme levels. They'll also have high, what we call CPK, or creatine phosphokinase levels. Most doctors know that that's from training nowadays, but the liver enzymes are also from training. Also, creatinine level, which is your clearance of the waste product creatinine from the kidneys, which is a kidney function test, can be a little elevated too. If let's say you just did a hard leg workout and then you went right and gave blood. You got a blood work done right after that. Your creatinine is going to come back high. I did a 20-mile bike ride once, went for testing my creatinine, was well elevated above what it normally is. I went back a week after taking a couple days off, and it was normal. So there is definitely anomalies that occur with bodybuilding and weight training, and you need to know these, because if you don't, you'll think you're going to die when you leave the doctor's office and he gives you the results. So I have a lot of people who send me blood work, and I do a lot of blood work analysis because a lot of people don't know how to read their blood work, and that happens to be something I'm pretty good at.
You're watching Askdave on RxMuscle.com. Again, 30-minute question and answer with Dave Palumbo right here on RxMuscle.com, brought to you by Species Nutrition. We stay on the Muscle Central forum and go to, it's either Roberta S. or Roberta's. Hey, Dave, I already lost 85 pounds, and now I can't lose weight anymore. Now about 2 weeks, then I didn't lose any grams. I've been dieting for about 6 months. Any suggestion on how to lose weight even then, with your body fighting in any way possible with you? P.S. I'm 17 years old, 6'3", and now I weigh 200 pounds.
6'3", 200 doesn't sound too bad, but whenever you encounter a plateau in your weight loss program, you got to analyze a few things. Now, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you're eating and what you're taking and stuff like that. So it's hard for me to give you specific advice. I can give you generalized advice. Number one, you want to look at your diet. Is the diet sound? Are you eating high protein? Are you eating a moderate amount of fat? Are your carbs low enough that you're able to lose weight? If they're not, you might want to lower those a little lower. Likewise, how much cardio are you doing? How long have you been doing that much cardio? You might want to try to up that by 10 minutes and see if that initiates more weight loss. What fat burners are you taking? Are you taking any? Do you want to look into taking some? I have a lot of my clients on Lipolyze, which is my daytime fat burner, and Somalize, the nighttime fat burner. No stims in there, and it seems to help the process as well. Every little aspect that you add to the equation will add another percentage to or point or two as far as weight loss goes. So you have to look at the holistic aspect of the diet, not just one variable. So cardio, fat burners, diet, and then you have to say, how much exercise am I doing? Am I over exercising or under exercising? That's what a good coach does. They analyze all the variables, and then they correct the variables, and then they make the adjustments weekly. And that's what I do on my weekly, my coaching that I do with my athletes. And I'm sure there's a lot of other people out there that do coaching as well. And sometimes it's good just to sign up with someone at least one time to learn the process. So then, if you want to do it yourself after that, at least you know the steps that you take to get to that goal.
We'll stick with the Muscle Central forum and go to Danny Almeida. Dave, even if I were stranded on a deserted island with nothing but a laptop computer and the only means of entertainment I had was to watch reruns of Ask Dave, I would still toss the computer into the ocean because of how horrendous your show is. I dislike the taste of oatmeal as much as I dislike your program. Nice. Can I replace oatmeal for Ezekiel bread as a carb source, specifically for general health or even dieting as well? Also, do you allow fans who are visiting or vacationing to train with you? And how can somebody go about finding out more information about this?
As far as Ezekiel bread, I have no problem with that, especially on like an off-season scenario. A lot of people like cream of rice, grits. That's another good alternative to oatmeal. I have been on like the oatmeal outs lately, and I'm a big oatmeal guy, and I've been doing a lot of grits lately. So you could switch those things up for certain. Like I said, the Ezekiel bread is fine as well if that's something you want to use. I wouldn't use that pre-contest, but I think off-season that's fine. As far as training with me, the funny thing is I hate training people in the gym just because I don't have any time. It's not that I don't like it. I actually do like it. And I'm training a friend of mine a couple days a week now. He usually trains with Bev Francis, and I've been doing it since she's off in Australia. And he said to me, he goes, you're a really good trainer. I said, I've been doing this a long time. I actually like training because I can identify things that people are doing wrong. So a lot of times I have clients that I work with that might come in for a weekend, say, and train with me, and that's fine because I find that interesting because I can kind of solve some of their problems. If they're not getting good leg development or back development, we can solve some of those problems. So you can contact me at huge285@aol.com, and we can set something up, and I can tell you how that works out, and that's not a problem.
Let's go to Bait Slinger. Dave and Sid, I think you're great guys, but honestly, I would rather be violated by the Whoa. You, my friend, have a deep, dark mind. Question. How old is too old to build muscle? Can a guy in his 50s still put on muscle, assuming hormones, training, and diet are all on point? Not talking bodybuilder, huge muscle, but to the level of a pro physique competitor.
They did a study about probably 10 years now ago. It was probably about 8 years ago, where they actually took 90-year-old people and they trained them in the gym, and they showed that 90-year-old people can build muscle. So certainly at 50 you can build muscle. How good you can be, it's dependent upon if you have any injuries. If you don't have injuries, I think you could really significantly make a big difference. When I go to Masters Nationals and I interview the guys 60 and over, 70 and over that get their pro cards, most of those guys didn't start lifting until their late 40s, early 50s. And the reason I think that they're so successful is because they have no injuries. So a lot of times, the older guys that look really good are guys that got into the sport later. So it's never too late. Or as my friend Charlie would say, it's never too late to be the man you could have been.
Let's stick with the Muscle Central Forum on rsmuscle.com. And again, a reminder, between now and Olympia weekend, and of course during Olympia weekend, all our banter, all our programming, all our content, and of course all the discussion about the Olympia competitors is going to be on the Muscle Central Forum, and you're not going to want to miss out on that. We have a lot of great stuff planned for you starting tomorrow night, 7 p.m., our new show Live With. We're going to have a special guest in studio, Max Charles, who comes off, of course, his big win at the Tampa Pro. He's going to be live here in studio tomorrow night, Live With, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You're not going to want to miss out on that. Let's go to PA Kodiak, good friend of the show. To the indispensable and truly beloved Dave and Sid. This show sucks worse than that one time I had dinner with Rafael Santonia at Spaghetti Warehouse in Columbus before the night show of the Arnold Classic and helped him practice his speech. Over an Alfredo fettuccine dinner for two, we babbled on for hours and neither of us understood a word the other said. When the waiter brought the check, Rafael conveniently had to use the restroom and I footed the entire bill. Yeah, that sucked, but not as much as this show. Well done. Anyway, some people say abs are built in the kitchen. Putting aside the benefit of building core strength, does abdominal training really have that much of an effect on the appearance of the physique, or does achieving a good set of abs just come down to diet? I'm currently 5 weeks out from my first bodybuilding competition, and my trainer has me doing 0 ab training.
Well, I always say, you could look at an anorexic woman, and they have great abs. They're ripped, but their stomachs are like balloony looking. They don't really have like that nice, tight, pulled-in midsection. Same thing with bodybuilding. If you lose enough body fat, you're going to have abdominal musculature showing through, but can you control it on stage? Is it functional? And that's important because when you're on stage, you need to pull your abs in on your side poses. You need to hit an abdominal thigh pose. It has to be functional, the abs. So if you don't train them, of course, you're not going to have a good mind-muscle control over them. So I think it's important that you at least train abs 3 to 4 times a week when you're getting ready for a show. And I think you should train them all year round. There's no muscle in your body that you should not train all the time. If you don't train your forearms, you're going to make your wrists weak. That happened to me at one point in my career. I was training, I was doing heavy benches, and I stopped doing forearms. I figured I don't need to do it anymore. They're big enough. And you know what? I was getting tremendous chronic wrist pain, and I didn't even realize that what it was from. I started doing wrist curls and reverse wrist curls again, and the problem was solved. Same thing with the guy who doesn't train their lower back, do hyperextensions. All of a sudden, that becomes the weak link. Or the guy who doesn't train his calves, that becomes the weak link when doing squats. So never miss a specific body part. Train them all. That's important, especially from the abs. That's the first thing you see when you're on stage.
We now move over to our livestream.com audience. If you're watching directly on our livestream.com page, you can ask the questions on the chat box. We go to Johnny150. Dave, which one of these whole foods are superior for muscle strength building, chicken breast or salmon?
I don't know if you can qualify which is better. I'm sure you can build the same amount of muscle on each. I personally love salmon. I think it's got a great amount of good fats in it. But you know what? Chicken, which has got a lot of arachidonic acid in it, which is not necessarily good for heart health, but is great for building muscle, is something that's not in fish. So I think that, once again, you can't really say one food is specifically the best food. It's the combination of different protein sources that I think makes the ideal environment for maximizing and optimizing muscle growth. Eggs mixed with fish, mixed with chicken, mixed with a little red meat, and that's how you're going to grow optimally. You can't just eat one food and expect to get the best results.
We stay with the livestream.com audience, and the next question, someone has done their homework on me. Jake Laser, I'm flattered. I would rather sit through 9 innings of South Asian Softball League with Sid batting cleanup than watch another episode of this show. Well, props, my friend. Dave, becoming a first-time parent and assuming the responsibility of someone other than yourself and your spouse, have you given any thought to cutting out activities that could be considered high risk?
I don't do any high-risk activities. I'm afraid to do them anyway. The highest risk activity I did was going to India and walking down a spiral flight of stairs, and I wound up tearing my quad on it. So, yeah, I don't do rides at amusement parks. I don't do skiing. I don't do ice skating. What other? I don't ride a motorcycle. I'm pretty low-risk activity because I know I'm very accident-prone. So that's not really probably the highest risk activity I do is cleaning my snake cages every day. But you know what? I always my dad told me this a long time ago. If you're going to be an athlete, you only do your sport. You don't get involved in other high-risk sports or activities because that's going to sabotage what you're doing athletically speaking. And he was right. And I took that to heart because I was always getting freak injuries. And when I stopped doing that, I became a great bodybuilder because I didn't get involved in all these other touch football games and volleyball games. You can't do that if you want to be the best. As far as having a new addition to the family, obviously you certainly don't want to be bungee jumping off of bridges or skydiving. I think that's silly because you know what? If I were to kill myself or worse yet, cripple myself, I could never forgive myself. So I don't do any of that stuff.
Jake Laser, for next week, I also play ice hockey. So your assignment is to now come up with the best I hate relating me to ice hockey. Let's go now to Uriah87. Is asparagus a true natural diuretic, and why does it make your urine smell different?
Here's the thing with the asparagus. Because when you eat asparagus, like 15 minutes later, your urine smells weird. Because of that, people think it's a diuretic, but it's really not. Asparagus, it's in and of itself, is not a diuretic. It just makes your urine smell differently. Now, why does it do that? Well, that's a complex chemical reaction that occurs with some of the ingredients in the asparagus. What's interesting about that, and I had read about this, a couple of years ago. I think I reported about it on Heavy Muscle Radio. Is that not everyone can smell that smell that the asparagus causes? It's like 50% of the population can smell it, 50% can't. So if you eat asparagus and you don't think your urine smells, you just can't smell it. That's the problem. But I know that if I eat I could eat one little piece of asparagus in a salad, and 10 minutes later, when I go to the pee, I smell it in my urine. So don't confuse the smell in the urine with the diuretic effect. There is really very little diuretic effect to asparagus.
You're watching Askdave on RxMuscle.com, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Visit speciesnutrition.com. We now go to our Instagram questions. Again, our handle is official_RxMuscle, and we start off with Mike Mez _. Dave, can we please get Vinny the Chin back on? I need more ketchup stain stories.
Well, we have a 100th episode coming up of Heavy Muscle TV, and I'm thinking about bringing back some of the best guests of the past. Obviously, Jimmy the Bull will have to be there if we can get him out of his funky depression. I know he's going to Florida. I'll see if he's around. I guess Vinny the Chin would have to be one of our favorites, too, to come back into the studio and see what he's up to, because, he's always up to no good. And we love that on the show. We love a little controversy. So, yeah, the 100th anniversary should be coming up. I think I might save it for the first week in September. We're going to be doing a lot of these live with shows over the next couple weeks leading up to the Olympia. But we're going to definitely have a Heavy Muscle TV episode 100, and it is going to be a star-studded cast.
Let's go to Dr. Superdose. No love, just hate the show. Do you think eating in a calorie surplus is needed to gain new tissue? It seems that not only professionals, but amateurs grow into a show on a calorie deficit. Apart from nutrition, do you think it's GH and trend that's making this a possibility?
Well, you're talking about calorie deficit, and then you talk about nutrient deficit. There's two different ones, okay? Assuming you're doing a wise contest diet, you're probably taking in enough protein and enough essential fats. That's all that's required to build muscle. Now, if you don't take in enough, energy supply or energy source, what I call carbohydrates, then what will happen is invariably your body will use some of the protein and fat as a fuel source. Some people are very efficient energy users. These people have a tough time losing body fat, but they gain muscle real easy. You put them on a good contest diet that's even very, very low in carbs, and they'll grow on that. Akeem Williams is a guy who comes to mind. He grows into a show. Kevin Levrone was like one of those guys, too. They just utilize all the nutrients they eat so well. But for most people, they will not grow into a show. They don't have the genetic capability to do that. And to be quite honest, that's not what your goal should be growing into a show. If you should be doing your growth in the off season, and then when you're dieting for the show, the goal is to maintain your muscle while losing body fat. And that's, don't combine the two. Once you start combining the two, what you do is sabotage your diet. And I'm sure we all know that guy out there. Every time he's got arm day because he thinks his arms are weak, he eats a ton of carbs the day before, and then when the week comes to the end, he loses no weight, maybe he even gains a couple pounds. And that's no way to get in shape. You can't be afraid to be a little depleted and to suffer a little bit, because that's the guys that are winning the shows.
We stick with our Instagram page again, official_RX Muscle. And we go to Grant Amo. This show is so bad it makes me want to walk into the ghetto wearing one of those sandwich boards like off of Lethal Weapon. Nice 80s reference. In the hope I get knocked unconscious, go to the hospital, and have to get put under and go into surgery just so I don't have to listen for another episode for a while. My question is, why do pro bodybuilders get judged against their past showing? Surely it should always be who is best on the day, but I've heard countless times judges talking about someone not being as good as they were at some show.
Well, I mean, let's face it. If you see a guy on stage at his best, and I think about Kai Green, 2009 Arnold Classic, that was his best in my mind. When I see him on an Olympia stage, if he doesn't look like that, then to me it's hard for me to want to see him win the show, because I know he can be better. And that's a precedent you're setting. You're putting down your foot and saying, here's how I look when I'm my best. If you look worse than your best, why would you be rewarded for that? Now, granted, if everyone sucks on stage, then you got to pick who's the best of the sucky guys. This guy's out of shape, this guy's not big enough, and that becomes a crapshoot. I always tell a guy, you can never be pissed off that you lost a show if you weren't your best. Okay? And I've helped guys that have won shows that were not at their best, and I'm like, we were lucky to pull that one off, and I know, and I tell them, I'm like, don't rest on your laurels and think this was a good look for you. You were lucky to win this show, and sometimes luck comes into play. But the bottom line is, if you show up at your best, you have nothing to ever be worried about. You can never say no regrets. Basically, I was my best. Maybe it wasn't good enough on this day, but I was my best, and that's like I said, all you can ever hope for in bodybuilding. Show up at your best.
Let's get back over now to the livestream.com live chat box and go to ER40. Dave, does the hammer curls truly work the brachialis muscle or forearms? And if so, do you still do them?
Well, hammer curls work the brachioradialis muscle. Yeah, that's the muscle between the bicep and the tricep. And I do them all the time, because when you're training your arms, you got to hit all the muscles that create size for your arms. That's the bicep muscles, that's the tricep muscles, and the brachioradialis. Excuse me, the brachialis muscle that sits between the tricep, and the bicep. Now, the brachioradialis, which goes from the upper arm to the lower arm, which is kind of technically your forearm muscle, also gets worked when you do this hammer curl. So if you don't do hammers and you're only doing open bicep curls, you're only going to work the biceps. You're going to kind of neglect most of the brachioradialis and most of this brachialis muscle, and that's going to make your arms lack density and size. If you look at pictures of Flex Wheeler's arms when he was at his best, his brachialis muscle was almost bigger than his bicep muscle, which pushed the bicep up more. So I notice when I see guys first starting out in training, usually the brachialis muscle is the most deficient muscle in their body. They have a bicep, they have a tricep, but there's no development there. So do not leave that out. When you're training, especially biceps, always do the open-handed movements and then the neutral grip positions so that you hit both muscles.
Let's go to Daniel Karam. Dave, down in Brazil, we have lots of whey protein brands that are about a fourth of the price of the imported American brands. How do we know if they suck more than your show?
You get what you pay for, I always say. And, pure 100% pure whey isolates are rare. Most people don't sell those because they're very expensive. I happen to sell one isolized because I believe in selling the best quality products. Probably not the way to move the most quantity of product, but I believe that quality is more important. Now, I don't know what brand you're referring to in Brazil, and I don't want to badmouth any brands because I don't know. I have to look at the labels. I would have to lab test the stuff. But by and far, if the stuff is very cheap, it's probably not a pure whey isolate.
Let's go back to our Instagram page and go to our good friend Team 3CC Carlos. Dave, this show sucks just as bad as an episode of MacGyver trying to escape from Farrah the cop. He uses MD magazine to hit Farrah in the head, and as he's running away, he gets bulldozed by Team Farrah Branch Warren that says, "Booyah, mother effer." Question: if on full keto, can I just take 20 grams of carbs before workout, and then another 20, then after another 20 grams, and still be in ketosis for a 230 pounder?
Is a heroin addict who takes heroin just a little bit twice a day a heroin addict? Yes, they are. So if you're going to eat a little bit of carbs, starchy carbs that is, twice a day, you're probably not going to be in ketosis. Will you burn fat adequately? Of course you will, because you're still on low carbs. But what you're missing, you might be missing out at the benefits is that your brain will still be looking for sugar. So if you're only giving it twice a day, little small amounts, it's going to be like you're going to be jonesing for carbs the rest of the day. If you eliminate those silly 40 grams of carbs for the day, which are doing nothing for you, essentially, what's going to happen is that your brain is going to switch into ketosis all the time, and you're going to burn fat for fuel. And your brain is never going to run out of fuel, and you're going to feel much better. So a lot of people ask me this all the time, can I do a little bit of carbs? Yeah, but you're not going to be in ketosis. It won't be a true ketogenic diet. It'll be a very low-carb diet, and once again, it'll be effective at weight loss, but you're going to be going nuts. You're going to be craving carbs all day long, and you're probably not going to be in the best mood when you're not eating those carbs. So that's, if you're going to go that low, you might as well get rid of them. If you're going to eat 75 grams of carbs a day, that might be a better methodology of saying on some carbs, once again, you won't be in ketosis, but at least you'll have a sustained amount of carbohydrate intake throughout the day. So it's the difference between a ketogenic diet and a low-carb diet. They're close, but they're not the same.
Take a couple of more questions. We got a lot of good ones this afternoon. We go to Pippers Riccio. I hate this show so much I'd rather be bitten by one of Dave's slithering poisonous pets. When trying to lose a lot of weight, should I pay attention to the glycemic index?
If you're eating carbs in your diet while losing weight, glycemic index is important. Glycemic index is a measure of how much insulin you release in response to a food you eat. And really what it amounts to is how fast is the food digested and assimilated into the bloodstream. So simple carbs like sugars go kind of right into the bloodstream. So you're going to get a tremendous amount of insulin release. Obviously, insulin is a fat storage hormone. Not good if you're trying to lose weight. Same thing with white rice. White rice is a starchy carb, but there's no husk on it like brown rice has. So it has a higher glycemic index because it gets into the bloodstream faster. So if you're trying to lose weight, you don't want to use high glycemic carbs. You want to use lower glycemic carbs. That's just a standard rule. Now, if I'm carbing someone up, I use high glycemic because we want to drive the nutrients and the carbohydrates into the muscle as quickly as possible. That's a different strategy.
Let's go to Manny Mass. Dave, this show sucked so bad. Let's just say the gentleman on the bike who hit your car was no mistake. And the license ticket might work as well. When coaching clients, rather it be off-season or contest prep, would you say you tend to pay more attention to pro athletes rather than amateurs, rather it be with communication or just the dieting?
Well, first of all, for those of you who have listened to Heavy Muscle Radio, the bicycle guy who ran into my Mercedes at the Eva's grand opening in Jackson Heights was I guess you could say, stunned, to say the least, when he hit my car. But I like, Sid, when people actually listen to the show and hear all my stories. Someone went outside and looked at my car, and they were like, "What happened to your car?" Because I still have the scuff marks on the door and everything like that. And I was like, bad luck, Murphy's Law. They say you attract what you think about. So maybe I was thinking about, someone hitting my car. I don't know. Anyway, getting back to the story, what was the question?
Let me see if I can find it now. Oh yeah, so about when coaching clients. Yeah, right.
Look, when I can only speak for myself. When I coach clients, okay, I give 100% attention to everyone, to Mrs. Jones, who works at the grocery store, to the pro bodybuilder like Akeem Williams. I'm always available. I answer emails very quickly. I answer text messages very fast, and my thinking is that this person who wants to lose 20 pounds so they can look good when they look in the mirror is, to them, that's just as important as the Mr. Olympia guy who wants to have shredded glutes when he gets on the Olympia stage. So you got to give just as much attention to everyone. Now, certain clients require more attention, and they might contact me more often and ask more questions, and that's their right. I give the people unlimited question answering ability. So some people use me a lot more than other people do. Some people will use me right in the beginning a lot, and then they kind of back off once they realize that I got them on a good plan. So once again, I make myself available. How you utilize my services is dependent on what your needs are. And if your needs are high, I'm available. And if your needs are low, that's fine as well. And every person is different. And I think that's important. And I think that every coach should consider that when they analyze and they work with people. Never take anyone for granted. Everyone is just as important as the next, because think about when you have a goal to do something. If I have a goal to get my hair cut, my haircut is just as important as Brad Pitt's haircut, even though he might be filming a movie later today. So the haircutter should not alter how they perceive the haircut just because of who the person is.
That does it for the questions. Now to nominate the winners. First, the best overall question. And Dave, I'm going to give you the first one, which was about how old is too old to build muscle, and asking about guys in their 50s still being able to put on muscle. And the other one was about about abs, building abs in the kitchen versus not training them at all.
I like that question.
You like that one?
The ab question.
All right, so PA Kodiak. Email me at sid@speciesnutrition.com. We will get you a Species Nutrition gym bag as well as Nitralize. Let's go over another best I hates. And the first one was about somebody being stranded on an island. Let's see. Okay, Dave, even if I were stranded on a deserted island with nothing but a laptop computer and the only means of entertainment I had was to watch reruns of Askdave, I would still toss the computer into the ocean because of how horrendous your show is. That was from Danny Almeida. Now, we had a question from Jake Laser, who clearly has done his homework on me, and saying how he would rather sit through 9 innings of South Asian Softball League with me batting cleanup than watch another episode of the show.
I got to go with that one. That's my favorite.
Jake Laser, congratulations. Email me, sid@speciesnutrition.com, and we will get you Nitralize pre-workout. Reminder, tomorrow night, an all-new episode of Live with Max Charles is going to be live in studio with Dave. It is going to be 30 minutes of Dave and Max Charles. Max, of course, coming off his big win at this past weekend's Tampa Pro. Keep it locked to rxmuscle.com between now and Olympia weekend. And, of course, on Olympia weekend, we are going to be wall-to-wall coverage, athlete interviews, new content, updated standings, everything relevant to the Olympia you are going to find on rxmuscle.com. Special thanks to our producer, Johnny Stiles, doing an excellent job as always. We will see you tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Live With. Have a good day.